Welcome. Kurt kind of took a little of my thunder when he talked about the program. I'm going to talk a little about the work and some other things. It is a really unique program, but actually before I get started, this is probably the right group. Just want to let you know, anybody that's looking or you know anybody, we have 2 communication positions open here at the Free Store Food Bank. So that might be the 30-second thing. So anybody that's interested, see me today, and I'll point you in the right direction. It's not what I'm doing, but there are 2 of them that are currently open. Our director of special events asked me to mention that. It comes up a lot why I'm here and why I do what I do. It is kind of a long story. It's interesting, and I'll give you the Reader's Digest version today. I have a master's degree in environmental science and in education, and my undergrad is wildlife biology. So people say, well, what are you doing in the kitchen? I still don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. I call it the Tale of Two Dads. It's not the modern version of the Tale of Two Dads, it's the old version. I had a stepfather, when I was in the 5th grade, my stepfather was an old farmer Dutchman who wore a suit to work for years, who always wanted to be his own boss. He bought a shoe shop in Westwood. And these were the old shoe shops when people actually took their shoes and had them repaired instead of throwing them out. I got caught stealing an ice cream bar in the 5th grade. I wasn't too bright. It was 80 degrees. The ice cream bar melted. I got caught. Back in those days, they didn't call the police. They called your father, which was far more deterrent than the police ever were. So he comes home from work and he says, empty your pockets. Well, I says, there's nothing in my pockets, because that's why I stole the ice cream bar. So he says, well, I'll make sure you never want for money again. So I'm in, I think, the 5th grade or 4th grade. Saturday morning, he wakes me up at 6 in the morning. We lived on the west side, and we're going down Harrison Avenue to work, and we stopped for breakfast. Well, eating out in our family was a huge treat. For a lot of people in the 60s and 70s, it was a big treat, especially breakfast. So we stopped for breakfast. I ordered the pancakes, the eggs, everything I could get my hands on, and ate. Well, we get to work. Now, this has been a shoe shop since Jesus wore sandals. The building's about this big. It's got all these belts and wheels on it, and underneath is all the debris from the shoes, and it's stacked up about this time in the machines. So Dad says to me, well, that's your job, is to clean that out. Of course, I was about the right height. I could get under there, and it wasn't a problem. Lunchtime rolls around, and he says, get money out of the register, and you can go up to the Creamy Whip on the corner and get lunch. Well, never had any money, and let alone go order my own food at that point. Well, I went up and got 3 Conies, French fries, a malt, and a Coke. End of the day, Dad says, well, it's 5 o'clock, you worked 8 hours a day, $1.25 an hour, that's $10. How much was lunch? It's $3.75. He hands me 6 1/4. And man, were the words in my mind going off. I didn't say any of them, I knew better, but that was a lesson. The next week I got a hot dog and a water for 99 cents. It was my money. Now the other dad, my real father, 2 weeks later, I get my weekend with Dad. We never knew what Dad did, we just knew he had 3 Monte Carlos, a blue one, a brown one, a black one. He spent a lot of time going in and out of buildings, and he owned a bar. On Sundays, our deal was that we'd go to the bar and I would sort the beer bottles. You put beer bottles in the cases, and that's how they took them back. Well, there's a noise out front, the bar's closed, and I go out and there are guys taking my father out in handcuffs along with the register. My father was a bookie, so that's why they weren't married, I found out much later in life. But the lesson that I got from that, I didn't realize quite then, is that the 2 men made sacrifices. My stepfather made a lot of sacrifices. He didn't make a lot of money, but he was his own boss, ran his own business, and that's what made him proud and made him happy. My other father, who I have a good relationship with now, after he got out, we are friends now and have an understanding. It's kind of a different thing. My stepfather passed away. But I did realize that, you know, what this man who did a lot for me. Now, I will also say at 17, I was thrown out of the house too, but that was my fault. And I went on to do what I did after that. But the lesson I learned from him was the work ethic and what a job meant to you, and that the job was just as important as you were, and what you did was important to who you became. So back in those days, for you that are older, remember Walt Disney was on Sunday night and Mutual Omaha was on before that. That's what you did on Sunday night. That was the entertainment. Mutual of Omaha was his wildlife kingdom. Well, I watched it every Sunday, and I thought Merlin Perkins was the coolest guy in the world. Later, I realized it wasn't Merlin, it was Jim who wrestled the anaconda while Jim sat behind the camera and did the verbal in the video. So I got into wildlife biology. I wanted to be that guy sitting there studying the animals. My first job out of college was to study manatees and sea turtles in Florida. Great job from a kid from Ohio, go to Florida, Key West. I had to leave Key West. There was an option, either better for it or get off the island. It was a tough winter in Florida. But I realized that saving this environment wasn't as important as saving the animals is very important. Saving the environment is important. The future of the environment doesn't really rest in the animals, it rests in people. We're the ones that makes the decisions. So this research is a great thing to do. It's a lot of fun, doesn't pay a lot. I sleep in water a lot, sleep in tents a lot, but that's what I knew I was getting into. So the future is really in teaching people about the environment. So I got into adult ed. You know, down at the street, you took the volunteers out, you let them work with the sea turtles, they gave money, hope they got a better idea, turn your lights off at night. Well, then you realize that really the future is not with the older adults because they are doing the voting. Teaching an old dog new tricks can sometimes be tough. So, okay, then where's the future? It's with children. We're going to let them grow up, learn these basic values in the environment, and maybe they'll make the right decisions or what we think are the right decisions. Well, then you start that program, then you realize that these kids were no different than I was. A lot of them, not all of them. Self-concept, self-esteem issues. So what do we do to make that better? Because if all the information in the world you give them, if they don't feel good about themselves, you're wasting your time. So I went back to get my master's in education, and my focus was to elevate self-esteem and self-concept through the use of the outdoors, something that was dear to my heart. So I taught climbing and kayaking 6 months a year, and then did the biology so I could cover my bar tab, and then did that the other 6 months of the year. The true love was the self-esteem and self-concept. Did it for 9 years, or 12 years on, 9 years fully involved, 12 years supervising and teaching programs. When Facebook came up, and I'm 54, you know, I was kind of, oh, I don't need that. Got on a few years ago. I cannot tell you how many of the kids that I worked with during those 12 years got in contact with me. I mean, it was flooding well, my last name being Lavatori, I was pretty easy to find. I think there's 3 of us. So, I mean, I was flooded, and the stories from these kids about what that time meant to them was pretty cool. It was very touching. Made me feel a little more better about what I did. I mean, I don't know that I could totally say I was doing it for an altruistic purpose. I mean, I enjoyed it. They got something out of it, and it was what I enjoyed doing. Well, as you get older, sleeping in tents and rock climbing gets a little tough. I got a new knee, I got a new hip, and I got a new shoulder. I'm about done. The closest I want to go to a tent's the Holiday Inn anymore. So I got out of that and stayed with the biology, and went as he became a park and rec director and moved back to Cincinnati. I'm from here originally, if you can tell by the accent. But I was the park and recreation for Deerfield Township. This was a move where I did get older. I matured. You know, money ain't a bad thing. I don't mind having a little extra in my pocket, not going to paycheck to paycheck. Did that for a few years, and really, truly, I liked it. We were building parks. I wasn't maintaining them. I had to build them. I am one to voice my opinion at any given. Yeah, you're all right, Tony. It's the only way you can get to that side of the buildings through here. Poor design. Yeah. See, now you can't even get out the door. I'm opinionated. I voice my opinions, sometimes whether they're asked for or not. I mouthed off to a couple of politicians on camera, so I'm a little leery of being on camera again. Was asked to resign a few days later. Knew it was coming. What are you going to do? So I not only lost my house, which was in the park, I lost my job. So I've been single my life. Like I said, money wasn't a thing. I didn't save like I should have. So I needed a way actually to make quick money. And what's the quickest way I knew to make money was to wait tables. So I'm 43 at the time, 44. Of course, nobody's going to hire a 44-year-old waiter back then. And I couldn't tell you how many places. Went to one place that said, he says, man, I'd hire you, but I hired 15 people yesterday. So I said, when do you think you'll need more? He goes, come back in 2 weeks. I'm like, really? 15 people in 2 weeks. Anyway, I was having trouble, and I needed it bad. They gave me 30 days to stay in the park. I went to an Italian place up in Westchester called Johnny Carino's, and I'm like, Johnny Carino's has got to hire Tony Lavatori. So I walked in, and it was run by an Irish guy named Mikey, and I walked in, I said, Mikey, I'm Tony Lavatori, I want to run your bar. He says, oh man, sit down. Well, anyway, I immediately started working for him, took on the training. The neat thing about the restaurant industry and what works for our students, it's a very forgiving industry. They don't care what your background is, they don't care where you've been, they just want to make sure that you show up on time, you're clean, and you're not stealing. That's what I did for him. I showed up every shift, worked my tail off because I needed the money. I worked 10 shifts a week. I needed every penny I got. Found out I was doing pretty good, and the beauty was the phone didn't ring at 10 o'clock at night when I got home either. About 6 months later, Bonefish Grills, I don't know if you're familiar with Bonefish, we've got 3 in town. We're right behind our restaurant. A young man, well, he's older than I was, but he comes in, sits at the bar one afternoon. As the normal thing, I'm just serving him like I would anybody else. After lunch was over, he says, hey, I own the Bonefish Grill behind me. I'd like you to come work for me. And I'm like, I didn't know you guys recruited in the restaurant business. I couldn't find a job 6 months ago. Now you're coming for me? He says, well, I hear you're full of crap and you can work my bar. I said, yeah, that's me. I says, but listen, this is not what I want to do the rest of my life. I says, wait tables. I said, and he didn't know I had the degrees, didn't care. We never even talked about it. I says, well, listen, I'm still looking to get back into biology. Tough thing 10 years ago, National Science Foundation, money was drying up. A lot of the universities that I did consulting work for, the money wasn't there. I had to reinvent myself. Waiting tables wasn't hard. I can talk, you can wait tables, you know how you want to be served. I mean, it's easy as it seems. We all know how tough it can be though, when you get one of those servers. So I talked with Tony for a while and I'm like, listen, what about management? What about management? He kept putting me off, and I didn't understand why. I learned later that he was making, I don't make him any money as a manager. I only make him money as a bartender. So I finally nailed him down and I said one Monday morning, I said, Tony, we've got to talk or I got to get out of this. I've been doing this a year. I just don't want to do it that much longer. He says, well, you show up on Tuesday at noon and we'll talk about management. Well, I show up Tuesday at noon and our regional vice president is there. His name's Charlie Gaston. Charlie and I are still very, very good friends. Charlie opens the door, he's like, what are you doing here? I says, well, I'm here to talk about management, but you should know that. He goes, no, I've not heard that discussion yet. I said, well, Tony, he goes, well, we fired Tony last night. I said, okay, well, that's the industry. Great turnover, always room for advancement. So Charlie says, well, let's sit down and talk. Well, we talked. When I got home that night, he says, send me a resume. Send him a resume. 15 minutes later, my phone rings, and he goes, what the hell are you doing behind my bar? I said, Charlie, I'm not asking you this for the experience that I've had. I mean, I've started my new life over, kind of want to reinvent it. Are the degrees really important in the restaurant or in the kitchen? No, not at all. So Wednesday morning, I was sent to Columbus, did 16 weeks training with Bonefish Grills. Went through all the kitchen experience. You had to learn to work every station to an efficiency level on a Friday night. I'm, 45 at the time. Wasn't easy. It was a lot of fun. I learned an awful lot. The day I get out of training, Charlie comes and says, I've got my own store for you. It usually takes 5 years to get it. I didn't get the store because of my experience or my degrees. It was because I put in the time and that I was mature enough to make adult decisions. A lot of restaurant people have that problem. It's a crazy industry. It's a funny industry. I've enjoyed it immensely. So I had my own Bonefish. I actually ran the one in Hyde Park for a year and then took the one over in Columbus for 5. I got married at 49, 48, the numbers are 6 years ago next month. I know that. So the restaurant business, being my age and getting married is not the ideal place. I didn't get married this late in my life not to see my wife. You know, when you're in your 20s or 30s, something you can do. So I made the decision to look back out. Went back into the biology. That was a mistake. It's changed. I've changed. Wasn't any fun. Wasn't enjoyable. And I've started looking. I wanted to get back in the food business. This was my later love in life. Well, I still was doing the stuff with the kids. Actually, I was doing more train the trainer, teaching people how to debrief and do the group training, which was fun. Mostly as a volunteer, you're covering my expenses. This job came open, and I don't know if you guys are from Cincinnati, you know La Rosa's Pizza. Mike La Rosa's was on the board here. Mike, we're old Italian friends from way back. Mike called and said this position was here. My immediate response was, it's nonprofit. I'm not doing that again. Looked at the job a little more heavy. So what we do in this kitchen is we elevate self-esteem and self-concept through the kitchen. So I'm doing nothing different than I really did 20 years ago in a setting that's more comfortable to me now and a little more fun. We have 90% job placement out of these students. You know, I get these calls now, we want 25 of them, we want 30 of them, we need 5. The casino hired 25. Then I'll get a call 2 weeks later that says, hey, one of you guys didn't show. I'm like, okay, one of mine didn't show. How many of the other 55 employees you got didn't show that same time? It's one of the things that we do. But our motto here in the kitchen is, if you work hard, you will rise fast. So our average age out there is in the 40s. We don't exactly know what it is. They're not kids. They're returning to the workforce. A lot of them have never graduated from high school. Graduation is every 5th Friday, and it's today at 11:30. I'm sure you got things to do, but if you are ever free on the 5th Friday, 5 of them from now, graduation is from 11:30 to 12:30. It's a very moving and exciting experience. For a lot of them, it's the first thing they've finished. It's the first thing they've completed. 5 of them out of the 15 got jobs already before the program's over. We offer a second course, which is an 8-week course, which teaches advanced kitchen skills. The restaurant industry, like I said, it's very forgiving, but those guys get those jobs and they don't leave those jobs. So the only way you move up is if he dies or doesn't show up, or she. So they come back and they can get advanced kitchen skills. We offer a for-profit catering, which was your catering department here. If you're ever using catering, we'd like you to use this the first time because you're giving back to the community. We'd like you to come back the second time because we give you a quality product. All the proceeds from that come back to benefit this program. It's also a nice place for some of our students to get a start, to get some experience, because even after the program, we're a job readiness program that teaches culinary arts. You can't teach culinary arts in 10 weeks. It's a 2-year college degree. We have 5 certified chefs back there that do the training. I am not a trained chef. I am a kitchen manager. What I've done for the program is the first year we came in $270,000 under budget. The more money we save, the more people we can help. So they do that. I manage the money in the program. It really has been it's an incredible place to work. And I say that, remember, there's 2 positions open. Really, really good place to work. I have never had this much fun and enjoyed coming to work as much as I have now. I mean, I thought I was having fun back then, but you know, I get to see the direct results here of helping people, where before it was 5 to 6 years later. And it's wild to see a large percentage of those that we put through those programs for those 9 summers, because those kids came through us for 8 years, from the time they were 8 to 16. Have done so much better financially than I have, but it was really neat to see. But that's why I'm here. You know, work and that work ethic is what I learned at a very young age. I've had to reinvent myself so many times that sometimes I wonder who I am in the morning. But the reason I have no fallback. There's no real family, there's no background. It's always been just me, which is something that I can relate to the students. I tell them that all the time, that where I'm at really does not have anything to do with what I did 20 years ago. It's got more to do with what I did in the last 7 years. So they can make that turnaround in their life. There's a lot of great success stories, a lot of them on YouTube. We have quite a few out there now. We have one student, the kitchen manager at Firehouse Pub. He's the kitchen manager from coming through our program. We have 4 or 5 in supervisory positions over at the Horseshoe. Are we about good on that? Because I mean, I could tell some more stories, and I got a lot of them. More about my father than anything, you know. The first Monte Carlo he let his 15-year-old son drive home, who didn't have a driver's license and had a 38 in the glove box. That's always a good story. It's one of my mother's favorites, to be honest. But so if you've got any questions, more than willing, more than welcome. All right. Well, yes.
What is your biggest challenge here? Finding money? Or?
No, you know what? The money's pretty good, and the meals that we send to the out to the schools that we feed 1,500, there's a reimbursement for that from the Department of Education. So it is a revenue stream. Cranley, I'm pretty apolitical though, gave us $300,000 this year to add 70 more students to the program. We have people, what's nice about this end, and I don't want to get in the whole liberal conservative thing. I mean, I can if you like, but that's not the forum. The nice thing about a program like this is that my side attracts both sides. You know, because you're giving them jobs, you're getting them jobs, you're taking them off that. So people are attracted. Those who just want to help like it because it's helping people out. We feed the families while they're here. We give them soft skills training while they're here. We do their resumes. We are trying to work with other organizations right now to see that we can't do more for the long-term sustainability. Self-reliance is an important thing. You're 10 weeks here, you get a job. Well, you haven't got paid for the 10 weeks you're here. You get a job. First, last months, and next months is a tough thing to come up with right away. We have a lot of them that are homeless. Why they're here? That's our future is trying to stabilize that self-reliance so they can get on their feet. It takes a while. I know that, they know that, and we can see that. That's what we're going to try to focus on now. So the self-reliance issue is a bigger part. We've gotten increased numbers of enrollment. Cranley's Money has the largest to enlarge in the number of students we can help. We used to have a class of 12 to 14. Now we have groups of 27, which also allowed us to increase our number of chefs. So we have a 6-to-1 ratio from chefs to students, where it used to be a 12-to-1 ratio. It's more of a culinary arts program now than it's ever been. We have some wonderful chefs. And if you ever want to come for lunch, we have lunch every day at 12 o'clock. Call me. Let me know, come through for lunch and see it. I mean, graduation's incredible. It's a heck of a lunch display. We're very, very qualified chefs. So that's kind of where we're at now. Sure.
Jobs-wise, is there any foreseeable future where is there any shortage or like limit to how many chefs you can supply in the area?
You'd like to think so, but there's not. I mean, the influx, if those of you in the area know the influx of restaurants, well, you know, the turnover in restaurants are always tough. So 3 years ago, we were calling the employers. We've got these people. They're calling us now. I mean, I get at least 5 a day. Not a day, I'm sorry, 5 a week. We maintain a job board. We have an intern that's going to start in January that's going to try to do some social media with attracting employers. There's still a lot of them that don't know us. We are kind of limited to who can employ us. The bus line becomes very, very crucial to our students. Being on a bus line is a great thing. The Racino, he keeps calling me. I'm like, dude, if you can get a bus to run out there, we can get him there. Now, why they don't have a bus that runs the Old Coney into the Racino, that's beyond me, but that's their issue. So for right now, we're doing fine. I will say not all of our students are looking for jobs. Some are comfortable with that. They come to our program to keep the benefits of their housing where they're at. We don't necessarily have a problem with that as long as they give 100% while they're here. We have them that have left here and gone to other jobs. Nehemiah Manufacturing is a group that hires students like ours. One of our former students is on his dock now, is his day manager. But it's like I tell them anything. There's a cultural thing here, and there's a history of. We had a great one, Robert Smith, that gave the talk that he had blamed. He was 33 years old, had gotten out, had done 2 years, came through the program. Robert now has his own job, his own apartment, and his speech was probably the most moving I've ever heard. He's blamed the system. He blamed everybody for his problems. He finally said, after being in this program, he realized it was his fault, and we gave him the opportunity to do what he could do. That's kind of what I share with them on the side of things here, is it doesn't matter where you've been. It's, you can blame everybody but yourself your whole life. It's that day you start looking inside and say, this is what I got to do to turn my life around. We have a good relation with the homeless centers. The Gospel Mission does a program with some drug dependency and addictions. They send quite a few here. What we'd really like is to see more of the students here. And I don't think it's just about the culinary arts. This shows an employer that if you've not worked in 5 years, that you've stayed in a program for 10 weeks, you've come in on time, you've done your 10, you've punched the clock, you've followed instructions, you maintain a nice life, that it's a nice reference to the first job no matter where they go after here. The Horseshoe put 3 or 4 of them in the money room, counting money. So one of the issues here is some of us have backgrounds. A lot of our employees know that. So when they send us a letter that says we need staff, they will say felons need not apply or felons are okay. So they understand our situation. But like I said, if anybody ever worked in a restaurant kitchen? Yeah, there's more than a few felons in every kitchen. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, over my tenure, I was amazed at how many GMs got fired for stupid things and ended up getting better jobs. Never understood that. I think I did the same thing, I just didn't get fired. But so that's pretty much it. Any other? Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about the catering side? Like how does the Cincinnati Cooks program rely on the revenue generated from the for-profit catering side?
It's not a total reliance, it's a help. When I took the program over 3.5 years ago, we were doing about $125,000 in catering. It's not going to really drive any money till we do $1 million. And $1 million, we do two things. We bring a lot back to here, and we can also give gainful employment to another 15 people probably. Our goal is in 3 years to do $1 million. We put an investment in the program this year. We have a culinary catering manager as well as a salesperson. They didn't have that. You can't really grow sales without somebody selling the product. You know, word of mouth is a great thing. I mean, you don't see a lot of catering advertised. But word of mouth, we were the caterer to the nonprofits for a long time, which is always a fun call. Yeah, we need catering. We got 100 people and our budget's $2.25. I'm like, you know, can't really help you there. But they expect a discount because we're the Free Star Food Bank. So it's a tough conversation. So what I say the approach is, give me your budget, here's what we can do for your money. If you can't use this, that's fine, but we're gonna give you a darn good product. Our product is vastly improved in the last year. I'm kind of proud of what we've done there. My boss would like to see it making more money. I'd like to see it make more. It's covering its own and giving back some. But at $1 million, which I think we're at 300,000 this year. So we've grown almost 100% over the last every year. So if we can do another 100% this year. So like I said, use this the first time because you're helping out, the second time because we give you a quality project. But we do, it's the Cincinnati Cooks Catering, has a web page, you can go there. We can do anything special too. Our culinary director is well-trained chef and can do just about anything. She does some next year she'll be in if anybody go to the Food and Wine Show this year down at Washington Park, we were down there this year. For the food and wine industry, if you're a foodie, my wife and I are big foodies, neatest event Cincinnati does was the Food and Wine Show at Washington Park. Top notch, unbelievable. It's not cheap, but if you can make it down there next year, just from the food perspective.
I worked with a similar program in Chicago, and they also did internships, so it wasn't just a program and then direct to work. Have you done any?
We've started. We're trying to start those. It becomes a very tough thing. The internships we have now are done through grants with the Hale Foundation and the Mayerson Foundation. We are putting our students in a couple of residential facilities, the Women's Crisis Center, where they've got 30 residents. So the grant is paying for them to do a 6-month internship, so they run their own kitchen and they're benefiting the Women's Crisis Center. We've got 2 of those set up now. We're working. I've got a little problem from the integrity of an internship if you go to a restaurant. If you're making money off my people, they should be paid a fair wage. I worked enough interns in my life where I was just doing somebody else's job. If you're doing somebody else's job, you should get paid for it. So designing that becomes very tricky. So we've been looking at it. We'd like to get to the point. The problem is that for the Self-Reliance, a stipend would be such a wonderful thing to get. The philosophy in this business, if I give you a stipend, are they going to come back in on Monday? You know what? I'm sure know some of them won't, but I think a lot of them will. So we're just going, that's just part of our new whole Self-Reliance program, is figuring out better ways to maintain that and to give them more. The guy at the stadium, I mean, which is a great start for him. It's what the Bengals are 5 months, hopefully a little longer this year. You know, he gets 20 or 25 of them every year. If they can get down and put that time in with them, it's a good start, and he pays a good wage. If they work for us in catering, they make a living wage. What we did 2 years ago is we had a janitor position. We took that money now, and our students who are working can work after the clock to do things in the kitchen, to help maintain the kitchen, clean the kitchen. Today they'll be cleaning these chairs. They get paid to do that. So instead of hiring a janitor, you know, for some of these guys, putting 30 or 40 bucks in their pocket a week is a big thing just to keep them maintained. But then it also allows them to I can give them a true reference as an employee or employer than as just a person who participated in our program. You're not allowed to ask any questions, Josh.
So day one, people's work ethic to the end of the program. What's the shift look like, and how do how do you instill a work ethic in people if they don't have one?
That and the sense of urgency are the two hardest things to teach. So the production that we have to do for the Kids Cafe is something they do in their first month. That meal's got to go out, it's got to go out on time, and the motivation for that is feeding 1,000. There's a lot of, as Kurt said earlier, when they know they're cooking for their neighborhood and their kids, they get a nice feeling that they have finally contributed back to where they came from. So there's that motivation of doing it, looking at the product. Now they have to eat their own food at lunch. So there's a little work motivation of the ethic on what I'm cooking. So they get to take that food home to feed their families. So when you eat your own food, you want it to taste good. So that work ethic starts in there. They're not all going to get it. Sense of urgency is the most hardest thing to ever teach, and I don't think we can teach that here in our spot. But some of them come in with a decent work ethic. By the end of the 10 weeks, you can see those who do. We have an extra mile award that's given out for those who have been here. I've also noticed that they've been here, done the extra mile. We have a donor that contributes $250 of a gift card for that. They don't know what the prize is, but they don't, and which is nice. They know there's the extra mile award, and they work hard to get it. What I've also noticed in the last 3 years are perfect attendance. When I first got, there was 2 or 3. We've got as many as 6 or 7 now that are getting the perfect attendance award. You have to come in here knowing what you're getting. We have a lot, I shouldn't say a lot. We have a few that drop out the first 2 weeks. Either this wasn't for me or it's too much work. Summertime's a little tough time too. It's warm outside. Wintertime, they want to stay. Summertime, it's easy to stand in a corner. I'll come back in the wintertime. But you get some of them come in here gangbusters. And, if we can help, you can only help those who want to be helped. And if they don't want to be helped, there's not much we can do for them. Sure.
How do people qualify to be
We have an interview process. You have to bring your record, criminal record. We have some guidelines. It's an individual case by basis. In the 3 years that I've been here, I think we've only turned down 2 people. One wasn't physically capable of doing the job. The other one said they were going to quit taking their medication. Well, that's not what we need in the kitchen. This is not the time to quit taking it. Unless you're giving it to me, then you can quit. But so that's the only 2 times. There was this philosophy here that you need to have stable housing. Well, it's kind of against what we do here. You're in here so you can get stable housing. What you need to do now is what we're saying is your child care and your housing needs to be taken care of while you're here. We had Robert Smith. We didn't know it. The guy took the grave of the speech. The only day he was late was graduation day. He was sleeping in a homeless in an empty building. They happened to board up the building while he was in it sleeping. He couldn't get out. It was funny to him. It's not funny, but that's the only reason he was late. We didn't know he was in the shelter. We can only help them with the problems. We have a admissions and career counselor. Her job is to eliminate any barriers that they have in the 10 weeks that they're here from completing the program. We want to continue that for the next year of helping them eliminate any barriers they have to self-reliance. That's where the more money comes in. That's where we need the more money, is to help that type of the program. Yeah, Dan.
Do you guys see running like a standalone standard restaurant as a part of this in the future anywhere?
You know what? Anybody in the industry, it's always what they wanted. Of course, I wanted to be called Tony's when we get it, but that's another point in time. There's 3 problems with a restaurant, and a food truck's probably a better model for somebody like us. You see the restaurants, they come in and out of business. The reason most restaurants go in and out of business is because chefs don't manage money well. When you work with chefs, and I've worked with some of the best in town on fundraisers, and it drove me nuts trying to work with these guys on these fundraisers. Drew Vogel, who is a trained chef who sells computer stuff in the day, he's left and right brain. Incredible guy, love him to death. Tried to get him to come work for me, couldn't afford him. And I was complaining about this to him, and Drew says it's this way. Chefs buy their food, they cook it, and they buy their food tomorrow. It's a 24-hour cycle. That's all the farther they think. Once you understand that, it gets a little easier to understand how they think. But it's a concept that we've looked at, very hard to manage, meaning a lot of money. I've been meeting with a former professor at Mount St. Joe that has a concept. We're going to build a business plan, work with veterans, see if we can staff it with our own, low overhead. And we're looking in Price Hill to do it. I think I started to tell you that's what we were talking about. It's in the very beginning stage. Cincinnati State runs a culinary program, For some reason, they're better than we are. Although we beat them at the Iron Chef cook-off at the, I like to throw that one in there at the Horseshoe. That's a nice plus for our students. We did beat them at the Iron Chef competition at the Horseshoe. It's a thought. I think every place, I know places like Chicago, who said they've got a diner. Seattle, they have a restaurant. New York, they have a restaurant. But I think if Cincinnati was a little more friendlier to the food truck, it would probably be a better way to start. I mean, we'd wrap it, make it pretty, it'd be a rolling advertisement for the Freestore Food Bank, and as long as it broke even, which is a lot less overhead, I think we'd do okay. So that's kind of where we'd like to go someday.
Cool. Other question. Like you were talking about, you guys have somebody who kind of helps them figure out how to stay in the program during the 10 weeks. Do you guys have any kind of long-term follow-up?
We follow up for 2 years. We do it for 2 reasons. You know, that basis gives you some grant writing potential, all that documentation and results. We also want to know if their lives are improving and why they didn't improve. So the focus in the last year, I mean, the first year we focused totally on the kitchen. The next year we focused on catering. This year is focusing on that self-reliance. So we want to improve that. And then so we check on them every 3 months for a year and then a year after that. But how we can help them for the next year is what we really want to do after they get out of here. It was kind of the same way when I was doing the self-esteem and self-concept through the outdoors. It's a great 10-week program, but you put them back in the Shark Tank when they're over, and what are you going to do for them then? This isn't any different than that. It has the same problems. That one was a little different to solve, but this one will take some more money. Cheaper housing. I mean, affordable housing is their biggest issue. You know, the Over the Rhine has a thing, and of course, I'm sure you know Over the Rhine is no longer cheap to live. So we're working with other agencies and partner agencies. The Freestore Food Bank has a whole department over at Liberty that does a lot of payee and help with that. But money becomes the bigger issue. Anything else? Yep.
What does school look like? Because it's going from, 2 years at a college to 10 weeks here.
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Like, for them, like, what are they going through? Like, as far as, teaching and stuff.
The culinary students or the culinary?
Yeah, the students.
The students, well, after the 10, I kind of missing the question, I'm sorry.
Oh, like, are they going through, like, all the lectures and, like, all of the
Oh yeah, 10 weeks, there's
training and stuff?
afternoons is lectures, all morning is lab time, kitchen time. Afternoons are soft skills on Thursdays. We have a tremendous amount of volunteers, and if any of you have something that you can contribute on that long term, we'd love to have you come in on a Thursday, or any area of the soft skills, job interviews, we do mock interviews, we do resumes, we have some what it means to truly work in the restaurant industry, what it means to be disrespected, how to get a better life. There's all kinds of things that happen on Thursdays. Tuesdays or Mondays, there's a National Restaurant Association certification called Servsafe. If you work in the food service industry, you have to, somebody in your business has to have a Servsafe certification. It's a 90-question tough test. We offer that. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, they go through the classroom training for Servsafe. So it's a 10-week class, but we rotate them in 5 weeks. They start every 5 weeks. So they're an undergrad and a grad. When you go out today, you are more than welcome to walk out this door and walk through and see the kitchen. Now, it's not our normal day because it's graduation day. They're prepping for grad. I mean, it's going to be a 3-ring circus out there today, especially since you're in their room and they're biting to get in here. But that's a little bit of pressure and a little bit of sense of urgency lesson for them today. So yeah, the morning's all lab. Afternoon, we do some specialized instruction on Tuesday. There's a 10-week schedule. Knife skills are so very important in the industry. We teach those 10 times during the 10-week program. Like the Servsafe, I teach the Servsafe on Monday and Wednesday. We've had former students that come back to us. If they get their certification, they will get a $2 an hour raise. For some of them, that's a 15 to 20% raise. We do it for free as part of the class. If you go to the Board of Health and ask to get their class and certification, it's $325. So we have a 90% passing rate right now of those passing the test. 3 years ago, we were getting a 60 to 70% passing. We've changed the way we do it, and it's 8 weeks of me saying the same thing over and over and over. But if that's what it takes to get that passing rate, that shows an employer that they've paid attention and that you're a food handler, that you know what you're doing. So, but yeah, the morning from 8 to 12, and like I said, every day at noon, they eat lunch. And then they get a break for an hour, and then they're in the classroom. And then we break them down into groups with the undergrad and the grad. Because we've upped our quota to 24 students, so 48 in the room doesn't work. So we've had to modify. Been a lot of modifications since June, since Cranley was nice enough to do that for us. We believe we're going to get some money from the state this year as well. Job training is the big thing right now, and it's pretty neat here. There's an unbelievable staff out there, very compassionate, very caring. Still don't know why I got the job, but they make me look very, very good. So all right. Well, thank you. Thanks. Thanks.